There is a building in London called the Walkie-Talkie. It's a tall, rather unusually shaped building that looks like, and you guessed it, a walkie-talkie. And if you go to the top of that building, you are gifted with some of the best panoramic views of the City of London, where you can literally see the city from every angle with a 360-degree glass viewing. And I went up there with some friends just before returning to Sydney. And I went up at the busiest time, which is in the late afternoon. And of course, from that great height with that panoramic view, you observe the sheer vastness and variety of the buildings of London, a city that is old and new. And it's a city that extends as far as the eye can see. And it's a very humbling thought to stand there with your fellow human beings and look down on such a city. It's a humbling thought to think about this place, such rich in history, of such character, of such importance to the building of civilization, and then to reflect on that this was what humanity has built. This is what our fellow human beings through history have built. You simply try just to take it all in. And everyone is rubbing shoulders with each other to see and appreciate in mutual awe the ingenuity, the intelligence, and the genius of man. But then about 5:45 p.m., everything changes. Everything changes. And whereas everyone before was basically spread around this panoramic view, all of a sudden the crowd rushes to the western-facing windows. And it's as if everything that we'd been admiring is all of a sudden forgotten. As if the rich history, the palaces, the parliament, all the interest and intrigue was just dropped as everyone rushes to gaze at the sunset. The sunset, so ancient and yet always new. We witness them every day, and yet each time they have the power, day after day, to bring us to a standstill and to render us speechless as we gaze in true awe. And yet it's a curious thing. I try to imagine what were all those people thinking as their eyes were drawn to such beauty. Maybe even their hearts and minds were reflecting on such beauty. What were they thinking as they gazed into that sunset? What did they think they were looking at? What were they really seeing? Or perhaps the deeper question is, what were they not seeing? When we all looked at those buildings, when we all were reflecting on our history, when we were all admiring the gift of civilization, I am sure, as I said, all of us were thinking, wow, this is what humanity has built. This is what men and women have built from nothing. And we celebrate, it's like a collective celebration of the power of human thinking, of science and technology, of intellection and industrialization. And yet, although we are immediately drawn, although we immediately gravitate to what is far, infinitely more superior in beauty and in wonder, I dare say many were prepared to say, oh, that all happened by chance. A feat of luck. What astronomical odds that this sunset, so beautiful, so majestic, oh, it's a feat of luck. We, of course, think a bit differently. But it's worth us asking ourselves, when people see beauty, why do they not think, what does this point to? What goes beyond what I'm witnessing and experiencing? Why am I so quick to assume, or why am I happy to accept, this must have just been luck? Astronomically, infinitely, a majestic feat of luck. Whereas, of course, we would say, this is a reflection of the creative genius and power of God that far transcends what man or woman is capable of. But if you ask yourself, if you think that this sunset is just a feat of luck, if you just say, well, this all happened by chance, which is what you have to accept, as I've said before. If you are an agnostic or an atheist, it's that you just say, this is all luck. Then all you can say is that sunset points to nothing. It points to nothing except luck. Because at the end of the day, luck doesn't point beyond itself. It is nothing. Instead, we all enjoy the aesthetic pleasure. We say, oh, it's lovely, it's beautiful. We relish the experience. But for some reason, some hearts are so closed that they're not willing to think about the beyond. Because if you think about the beyond, if you think that's more than luck, you're going to be challenged. And when we're challenged, that means we have to change, and change is the one thing human beings don't like to do. Nevertheless, the fact is, the beauty of that sunset captured the attention of everyone there. Everyone rushes, wants to see, have a glimpse of this beauty. And Bishop Robert Barron, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with, he said famously that beauty is the arrowhead. Beauty is the head of an arrow. Beauty is the arrowhead of evangelization. It's the point in which the evangelist pierces the mind and the heart of those he's seeking to evangelize. In other words, the one thing that will capture the mind and heart of every human being, unless you are absolutely twisted, is beauty. We cannot resist beauty. Only the really depraved, only the really twisted can resist the power of beauty. You know, maybe we haven't thought of beauty in those terms. Beauty is never an end in itself. It points like an arrow beyond itself. That's why when we see a majestic piece of architecture, we think, who built this? Who is responsible for this? To experience beauty is to experience truth and goodness. And yet, it's so tempting for human beings when it comes to the things that are most majestic, most beautiful, most incredible. It's so tempting to shortcut or short-circuit the author and just turn inward. It's just a nice feeling, a pleasant experience. But I dare not think about what this is really pointing me to think about. And it just goes to show human beings, we're so good at deluding ourselves because beauty inevitably causes us to question. But we can still delude ourselves into thinking, just a chance, just luck. You know, this is all just an astronomical feat of luck. In contrast, the Catholic faith is grounded in beauty. I try to imagine, what would the world look like if the Catholic Church never existed? The incredible, singular contribution to the arts, to music, to the physical arts, to architecture, but not just those things, the beauty of human reasoning. The Church has been at the forefront of promoting the beauty of intellection, the beauty of scientific order, the beauty of the moral life, the beauty of our liturgy. Our faith is beautiful because it's meant to take our eyes away from the things of this world. It's meant to take our eyes away from ourselves. It's meant to take our eyes away from a turning inward and raise our minds and hearts to that which is most true, good, and beautiful, and that is God. And we see this point inspired by today's gospel. We are told how Jesus takes his closest friends and he leads them up a mountain. He says, pull yourself up out of the world. Get away from the humdrum. Come up with me. Come up with me. And in their presence, he reveals his true identity, his divinity. He is transfigured. And that word literally means to be made more beautiful. To be transfigured is to be made beautiful. Now, why does he do this? Why does he take his closest friends, pulls them up out of the world, away from the materialism, and reveals his beauty there? Well, it's so important because only a few weeks hence, the disciples will experience this: the cross, the suffering, the tragedy, the horror, the bloodshed. And in that moment, we might be forced, I can't resist this. I'm going to turn away, I'm going to turn inward, I'm going to look down. But what sustains us is that experience of beauty. The experience of beauty is what sustains us. And what our Lord is saying to you and to me is that if you pray, if you do not pray, if you do not go up the mountain, if you do not have that transfiguring moment in prayer, you will never survive when you suffer, when you experience the difficulties of life, when you go back down from the mountain. The only thing that will sustain you in life is your prayer life. And when I say prayer, I'm not talking about the juvenile, naive kind of prayer that says, Lord, give me this, Lord, I want that. I'm talking about a deep, intimate friendship with our Lord that involves listening to his voice. And what a beautiful thing for human beings. It's the most beautiful thing for a human being to kneel down and converse with the creator of the sunset, the creator of the universe. What a powerful thing for a human being to be able to dialogue directly with someone that exceeds everything imaginable. God creator, Lord immortal, God eternal. What a powerful thing. And so St. Peter says, Lord, it is wonderful for us to be here. It's a wonderful thing to pray, but it's hard. You've got to get up the mountain first. That means you've got to really make that effort to get away from the messiness of life and all the things that are holding you back, the entertainment, all the pleasant sensibilities that really point nowhere. It's hard, but once you're up that mountain and you have that experience, it begins to sustain you in all the midst and sufferings of life. And indeed, thus, it is always wonderful to come to Mass. Lent is all about learning how to see God again. To see God even in the midst of our sufferings, in the midst of our Lenten penances, but that requires a deep prayer life. Prayer should help us to be beautiful people. Beauty, wherever it is found in integrity. Beauty is found in right order, and beauty always points beyond itself. Our lives should do all those things. We show the power of beauty by showing how our faith sustains us in our sufferings and in our self-sacrifices. And Lent is the perfect time to do this. In the words of Pope Benedict, even on the darkest of nights, Jesus is the lamp that never goes out. For what this sunset is to the eyes of the flesh, Christ is exactly that to the eyes of our hearts.